This is the City of Waupaca City Plan Commission meeting.
All right, I think we'll get going. We have a public hearing that we are going to do before the regular city council meeting. So I'll call this public hearing to order. This is a, in attendance is Commissioners Olson, Lesage, Fair, Wayne, Keelan, Public Works Director Justin Behrens, who's also a member, Mayor Brian Smith, and then we have staff, City Administrator Aaron Jensen and Jarrett Rakew. So we have a conditional use request from Michael Weddlestead and Kelsey Ann Hayes for Commercial Drive. And you can see that request, that public notice is in your packet, and that was posted according to city rules. And I think the best way to do this maybe is to, Aaron or Jarrett, can you explain exactly what this is all about?
This whole meeting is Jared's show today, so go ahead, Jared.
All right.
Yeah, so this public hearing is for a conditional use permit for Michael and Kelsey. They are looking to construct personal storage sheds, mini warehouses on a I-1 parcel. Mini warehouses and the personal storage units are conditional, so they do need to come for that extra review. Accompanying that is, of course, a site plan that goes along with it. So you'll see both have kind of near identical information as they are regarding the same thing.
Okay, so at this time, then, we would take testimony in favor of this conditional use. If you'd like to give testimony in favor, step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and try to limit your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Any testimony in favor of? Any testimony in favor of? If not, we'll take testimony in opposition. Is there any testimony in opposition? Same thing, give your name and address as you step up to the podium, limit your time to 3 minutes or less. Any testimony in opposition? All right, hearing none, I declare this hearing closed at 5:18 p.m. And we'll go right to the regular City Planning Commission meeting. We have our City Planning Commission meeting. It's our regular scheduled meeting on Wednesday, November 3rd. It's 5:18 p.m. In attendance, again, we have Fair, Keelan, Behrens, Smith, Wayne, Lesage, and Olson. And then we have our staff, Aaron Johnson and Jarrett Rakew. You have an agenda in front of you. There are no additions to that. We would just be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Fair, that we approve the agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, so we have some minutes from some meetings. We had a special meeting on September 22nd, and then we had a public hearing on October 6th and our regular meeting on October 6th. We need to just approve these so that we can place them on file.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Wayne, that we approve the minutes of those the last three meetings. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Action items. Site plan review for Foundations for Living. Jarrett?
Yeah, so this is a site plan report or site plan review for Foundations for Living at 1421 Churchill Street. This is a change of use, but I guess as we're continuing through the process, there are some special circumstances with this. It is in the homeless overlay district, homeless shelter overlay district, which was recently approved by council. So bringing it to you to kind of go over this review, and then there are a couple oddities as it is a non-conforming lot with a non-conforming structure. So to kind of run through it, again, this is at 1421 Churchill Street. As I believe in the past, a special permit was being granted for this, which the city has transitioned away from that since those are no longer valid, and switching to the conditional use process. So as such, they are going for conditional use, which would allow them to operate this business continuously, not having to come back for anything, additional review, stuff like that. So the zoning for it is a B3 general commercial with a homeless shelter overlay district. And then in the back part, it is a resource conservation district. They are looking to do offices, professional offices, warming shelter, and retail. Kind of running through, you'll see in the zoning dimensional standards, they are a non-conforming lot, so they do not have the allowed width. As it is already established, it is allowed to continue as is. There's a note that kind of talks about non-conforming lots right below the table. Traffic, parking, and access. So kind of looking at this, it is a unique land use. So kind of I'll run through some of the items I put in here. So they are looking at doing a lot of the required requirements per the code. A couple oddities that I guess I was recommending some variation of would pertain to parking lot screening. So the parking lot is kind of, if you have an aerial overview, but there really is no way to screen. The driveway goes right into the parking lot. So as part of their tree planting requirements, positioning that tree to be more towards the parking lot to kind of provide that screening was kind of a recommended condition. The other one would be, since it is an odd-sized lot with a driveway that takes up near a third of that frontage, to ensure survival of the trees and ensure they have adequate room in between whatever trees they choose, recommending only 2, as that width from that is open space currently between the north lot line and the driveway would only require 2 trees. So looking at that, that would be another recommendation. The other final one would be parking. So looking at this, again, this is a very special circumstance where it is a homeless shelter. So per our current standards, they would be required to install upwards of 25 parking stalls, which, unfortunately to say, majority of the individuals using this land use would not have vehicles. So again, just kind of an oddity with the office space, with the retail, trying to combine all those uses. It just put in a very high number of unneeded parking stalls, I guess, in staff's opinion. If that is something that Plan Commission feels otherwise, they can certainly revert back. But I guess to staff or to myself, it made sense to reduce that to what is needed. In the packet, I actually asked the developer, the representative, to provide justification of how many they feel they would actually need, which they provided justification. I think they actually still have or are going to provide extra stalls. Kind of an oddity there. Looking for some variation. Landscaping, again, kind of talked about the variation given the reduced lot width, with it being a non-conforming lot, only having to plant 2. And then with the homeless shelter overlay, there are a set of specific requirements that need to be met per this. which going through all of them are met. I made sure to outline it in the report, just if you really wanted to read through in detail. Some of the highlights, making sure they don't have too many beds, which they are under, making sure they install a bike rack for those that need bikes, making sure they have laundry facilities, proper ADA bathrooms, stuff like that is all part of this special section and requirements. And then at the very end, I did include some recommended conditions. Depending if the commission goes with my recommendations or doesn't, there may need to be some of those that are changed. But we can definitely alter those as needed. So I guess I will take any questions you may have and happy to explain anything further on this one.
Right. Everybody understand what they're trying to do here? Anybody have any questions?
Jared, I'll start out a little bit. Is there any change to the existing building in terms of its footprint?
Nope. There should not be. They are going to be required to pave, so that'll be changing, and then they are going to be required to screen in the dumpster
Right.
enclosure. So I guess really in terms of outdoor, those are really the major ones.
And as I'm looking at the, survey map, we have Lot 1 and Lot 2. Okay, were those always Lot 1 and Lot 2, or was that Lot 2 created as a result of this situation now?
So Lot 2, kind of a complicated mouthful here. So the parcel is zoned R3 multifamily and resource conservation. So actually that Lot 2 is the resource conservation part. So that's kind of the part where it is very steep topography. It's going towards the river. That's just down, just to the right, I guess, when you're looking at the survey map. So Lot 2 is part of that lot. And I think it was just depicted that way because of the underlying zoning classification of one half is R3 and the other half is resource conservation, which has very restrictive requirements that they can't build in, stuff like that.
Is Lot 2 ever going to is it a buildable lot?
No, Lot 2 would never be buildable. Doesn't have the street access, and it is that resource conservation. So
it's split off to show that it's not part of Lot 1, basically, and therefore for the foreseeable future will just remain as is?
So, and I think this is maybe deceiving. I think it all is one lot. I guess I can't speak on, I guess in our GIS system, it is one lot. It's just in our zoning, it's split into two. So I think this survey map was really just showing that there's two separate zoning classifications and where they are. If that makes sense.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks. So there is that shared driveway, Jared, and they've talked to the property owners that are sharing that driveway, and everything's okay there. Do they have some kind of an agreement?
I don't think this one has a shared
It
driveway.
doesn't have a shared?
Yeah,
Okay,
I said
no.
don't think
Okay.
it does.
Okay, I thought it did.
Looks like it on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it does not have a shared driveway. The driveway for that development to the south comes off of Apple Tree Lane.
sounds good. All right, so you have recommendation from staff to approve this conditional use permit. And there are 13 recommendations that are on there. So if you make the motion to approve, you would also be making a motion to approve those 13 conditions.
I will move to approve.
Motion by Keelan, second by
Second.
Olson, that we approve. I lost So are we just, help me out here, so are we just approving the site plan review, or are we approving both the site plan and this is just site plan review?
This one's just site plan.
Site plan
Yep.
review. Okay.
Yeah, you're just looking to approve that site plan with the recommended conditions if that is what you want to do.
Thank you. All right. So that's what the motion was. And the second. Any further discussion?
Just one further question, Jared. Is there any time limit based or time suggestions that you base in your conditions, such as paving and planting, et cetera?
Yep. So refuse areas shall be screened within 1 year of approval. I believe I made them all 1 year of approval.
Paving,
Yep.
I think, was 1 year.
Paving, 1 year of approval. Planting of vegetation, 1 year of approval. So everything would be 1 year of approval. So after that 1 year, we would go check, and if it's not, it would be a violation.
Okay.
But that would also give them that spring and summer to properly plant that vegetation to ensure survival.
Okay.
All right. Ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Again, say no. Motion carried. All right. Let's go on to, are you going to handle these together here, the conditional use permit and the site plan review, or do you want to handle those separately?
So it'll be, I guess, near identical information. So I guess I'll kind of go through the conditional use, and then if there's parts in the site plan that I've already mentioned, I'll just kind of skip over and hit the highlights.
Okay.
So starting with the conditional use. So this is what the public hearing was on. Mike and Kelsey are looking to start a new business, Toy Shed LLC, and this would be the mini warehousing and self-storage units, or personal storage units. I guess they have a couple different names. So they are looking out, and it's actually out by the airport to give you some perspective of where it is. A lot of those parcels surrounding the airport are zoned I-2. They, of course, do have height restrictions on them, so it does limit what can be built, and that's according to the airport regulations. Current zoning, of course, is the I-1. Future land use is that neighborhood mixed use. So looking at this lot, it does conform to all of the zoning dimensional standards. It's a pretty large lot. I did put some conditions in here, recommended conditions. I guess to go a little bit more into the site plan portion, just to give some more perspective before we do I guess would it help if I just went through the site plan as well?
Sure.
Okay, just to make sure you guys have a full understanding.
We're going to have to take two separate motions, but I mean, we're talking about the same property.
That'll work.
Yeah.
Do we have that in the package, Jared? I'm looking for some.
Yeah, it should
overheads.
be.
Let's see it.
You're looking for the staff report?
There we go. Here
Oh,
we
the
go.
proposed buildings.
Yeah. Is that what? Would you prefer I have that up right now to speak to that?
I guess whatever visual you want to have up would be fine.
There we go.
Yeah, there's some.
There we go.
So kind of a depiction. They're really looking to start in the, I guess it would be the northeast corner. Eventually will expand. But parcel is not addressed yet. It's a vacant parcel that was just used for farmland. They are looking to do that self-storage units, mini warehousing. They're out with two proposed or two units. They kind of have different styles. One would have doors all the way across. The other would be a couple doors and then one main door that I assume is going to be used for larger items, boats, whatever that may be, seasonal storage. Traffic and parking, so stuff like this. So parking really wouldn't be necessarily necessary. There is space in between each door of each building for unloading, loading, but really this is more of, as I'm sure you guys know, the personal storage units. You come, you pick stuff up, you drop stuff off. You maybe don't show up till the next month, two, unless you, for some reason, really like it in there. I guess, couple unique with this that's a really good picture of, they're only going to start on that one side. This is in the East Gateway District, so there are special restrictions imposed for that. So I guess I will go more in depth when we look at the site plan for that. And then, of course, they do have landscaping proposed, both in the front of the parcel and the back. So, I guess to go more into the East Gateway District standards, special setbacks, which this development does, and any other proposed so far will meet. A greenway is needed. So there is a greenway that is composed of trees, bushes, shrubs, a mixture of that in the front. And upon a review by the DPW director, it was recommended some of those be switched out to prevent things like oak wilt and the spread of invasives. So those are actually in the recommendation to be changed out, but have actually already been changed on the plan. We received a updated plan right before we put the packet out, so we did just quick switch that so it was accurate, but left them as conditions. One of the big ones was the lower 3 feet of the facade of the proposed buildings are required to be faced with decorative brick of some sort. Now, in my interpretation of this code, it was that it made sense to be on the front facade that is visible from the public street. I know discussing with other staff, there is some discrepancies. There are some discrepancies with this. And we moved down to the airport where one of the hangars was required to have brick all the way around it. I guess that was when I read the code, that's not how I interpreted it. But I guess it is up to the individuals, you guys, of how it really should be interpreted. So in the proposed plan and in the report, it does only have the brick on the facade, so the very front part facing. It'd be the primary road, I think it's Commercial Drive. But if that would need to be changed, that would need to be an added condition to go all the way around the buildings. And then another consideration would be for the future buildings that would go behind it, would that also be required? So I guess something, depending on, which direction you guys want to go, is probably something staff needs to clear up in our code to ensure it is clear, not only to staff, but as well as anyone reading it. So that is one hiccup that I guess I'll point out right away. Other than that, the building colors, they reflect the simple texture patterns and minimalistic earth tones. All the parking areas will be paved. Lighting is going to be night sky compliant. They submitted the specs on the lighting that they're going to be using, and then no refuse storage or signage have been proposed yet. So that's none of that was looked at. So I guess I will take any immediate questions on that. And then, if you want to distinguish between the two, and then if you want to discuss it all, that East Gateway District standard, go from there.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions they want to start with?
I'm trying to clarify that the brick ordinance, the brick facing. Does it say masonry or does it say brick? I guess I thought it was masonry.
And I will read right from the code, so I am not misinterpreting anything. So it does say common brick and common block are prohibited as exterior building surfaces. For industrial buildings, the the lower 3 feet of the facade adjacent to public ways area shall be constructed with face brick, textured block, or a face brick stone. So it does offer different variations of it. And then the remaining upper portion can be constructed of commercial grade material as needed. So
to follow up on that, Jared, you're interpreting that to mean because it says facing the roadway is the only aspect, that's what you thought anyway, that needed to be the facade. Is that correct?
yeah, so the lower 3 feet of the facade adjacent to the public ways is kind of what made me infer that it is just that front part facing that public way.
But of course, in a situation like this, when it's plural, the public ways, there's quite a few ways to approach buildings like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and in this case, it does only have one street running along the north. It does have the airport to the south. So I guess in my mind, again, the public ways is the public right-of-way. So that would just mean the roadway to the north up on your screen now is that commercial drive section, yellow line. So that's why, to me, it was just the front part. Now, if that's what was the intent of it, I guess I was not here during those past discussions. So,
what would you do, or what would the owners do if they put successive buildings on? Would just one set of buildings in the front and the rest would not?
In my mind, as as those buildings would be blocked, the remaining buildings wouldn't require that. It would just be that front portion. Again, if that's determined otherwise.
So, interestingly enough, and just for a little, me trying to recollect what we've done in the past, and I know it's tough for Jared because he's new too and just trying to read code, although we, as city planning commissioners, are pretty good at reading between the lines sometimes, so to speak. And so if you look at that building, lower that one once, just that one that you just showed right there. Right here. All right, so that's the front of the building. I'm assuming that's what's going to be facing the road. And what you're asking, or what our code says is that they have to put brick, what is it again? Say it again, concrete or?
Face brick, textured block, or face brick stone.
Okay. So they have to put face brick from the bottom 3 feet up, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if you look at that, you're talking, just lower that, just the other way. Raise it. All right, so you'd be looking at only those places between the doors would have that face brick on there. Just those areas right there. Okay? Now, I'm sure they've thought of this too, but I'm not very good at backing up. When I'm backing up to put stuff into a storage, I'm going to hit that brick. And is it going to look worse once I hit it? It's such a small area. Now, if you look at one of the other ones where it only has a few doors on it and then the rest is moved to the other building where it has. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. So look at that one that just has the 4 doors and then you have, the rest of it is just storage there. That makes sense that it at least is, at least the bottom 3 feet is a different color so that it's not all one color all the way up. But I think if it's the whole building is doors like that, to me, it doesn't make much sense to put it there. Now, would you suggest that it not be brick, but it be a different color steel And remember that we did that once before at the Schmidt boat docks when they added on the back end. And this is for new members too. So on their first building that they built, we made them put brick on the front of their building. And then they added on the second building in the back. And we didn't make them put brick, but we did make it two colors. So the first 3 feet, I don't know if it's 3 feet or if it's whatever, it's approximately 3 feet. On the bottom is a different color. And then the rest of it is, and I think it looks nice, personally. And for moving around docks and stuff like that, you got less chance to ruin something that you have there. And then I'm guessing too, when you talk about landscaping too, some of that landscaping is going to make that property look better anyways. So the landscaping will make the building look better, quite honestly. So I know what our ordinances say, but I know that we can vary from our ordinance if common sense tells us that doesn't make sense. So I do like, again, this is a good example right here. So I do like that where there aren't doors there, that you have something on the bottom that's a different color than on the top portion of it.
Mayor, do you mind if I make a comment?
Sure.
All right. So as we're looking at these, this, I think, north elevation here. So, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong. This that I have my mouse over right here that has less doors, this is the one facing the street. It's the side facing the street, correct?
So, to my belief, I'm going to turn around and yes.
Yes.
That is correct.
And in either of those two proposed buildings, does it look like this, the bottom one facing the street?
The bottom one, both of them are facing the street.
Okay.
And the top one, there's doors on the back side, but not on the front side.
Okay, so there is, so facing that street, there are both of these versions. The south elevation kind of had me a little confused, but okay, thank you for clarifying. So, Mayor, if I heard you correctly, basically that would mean that this area here would be that two-tone or brick or whatever, but not here necessarily, and then this one wouldn't have any. Is that correct? In that scenario?
Well, I mean, that's what I think makes more sense. Again, just my opinion here. Justin?
So you're suggesting to go with a two-tone rather than like a brick or block or stone?
I am.
Yep.
I am. I think this is very similar to the Schmidt boat dock situation. I think it will look just as nice as if the brick is there.
Are you suggesting, Mayor, too, that would only be the facing the commercial drive area?
Yeah, I'm trying to picture it out there, Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Can I? So I'm just gonna think aloud here, if that's okay. If it's two-tone and not brick, you talked about the backing up in between. The two-tone, I would think, would be less of a big deal to put it in between. And if you had the two-tone, it would look uniform. Mm-hmm. So then, in that case, it would be two-tone on both of those elevations, or both facing Commercial Drive.
Well, so maybe I misunderstood your first question. I am suggesting that you put two-tone on those
Okay,
posts or beams in between the garage doors.
gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, thanks.
We have an idea of if going two-tone versus one, how much cost that increases? Do we have?
Mike, do you want to just step up? Because you might be able to answer that question.
Two-tone, it would save like $3,000 to $4,000 by not doing that.
By not doing which?
When we put the stone on the bottom of there, it's going to be like $4,000 extra to put the stone on the building. So if we went with tin or a different color, it'd be a lot cheaper. It probably wouldn't add a lot of cost to it. And we'd have we just wouldn't have we wouldn't have stone, we'd have steel.
Well, yeah, I guess I was saying the two-tone steel versus just a one color.
It's going to save something. I don't know exactly, but I would guess probably $1,000 it would save you by not doing it because you just run the straight sheets all the way down and not have to.
So doing the two-tone would still cost more than if it was just a solid one color.
Yes.
But would there be a trade-off then instead of just doing one front two-tone to do one of the sides or other buildings versus doing the masonry? I mean, because then you still get the aesthetic intent that the code is looking for, but then there's a trade-off in cost.
The masonry, like the mayor said, is going to really be rough because somebody's going to back into it, and I think there's going to be a lot of repairs to that. For the steel piece, we just change the steel piece to make it a lot easier. And if you wanted to go like around the first one, if you wanted to go down one side of it, down the that you see from the road, I guess is fine with if you want to do that. I just don't know what it would look like. We'd probably have to get it designed. I mean, it would look like that top piece. I think would look okay if you're okay. You guys are okay with it. But that would just be the front building then, not the continuing back ones, right?
Alan, go ahead.
The overwhelming appearance here is doors.
Yeah.
And I don't think two-tone is going to make any difference in the appearance of it. I wouldn't require a two-tone. I'm just as is.
You don't see a lot of storages with two tones. I'll be honest.
Exactly.
They're just.
You see doors. That's what you see.
Well, that's true, Alan, with the building on the bottom, but the one on the top.
Yeah, and that's the one I'm talking about. The southern elevation, yes. Yeah, as far as the northern elevation, I think that's fine like that. That would be.
I think the one without doors that needs something on it to make it look better anyhow. And your two-tone idea would be cool there.
Yeah, I'm okay either way, quite honest. I just thought there would be some consistency if you had the two-tone, even with the doors, all the doors across. But, I mean, I'm okay with that. So what do you guys think about, go ahead, Eric.
Well, it's just to stay consistent with Schmidt, what we made them do, which is actually probably in sight of this building, right? It makes sense to have them do the two-tone since we had the other building that way as well. And it sounds like he's on board with that idea.
Okay.
But just for the front building.
The two-tone's fine with us. Without putting a stone is awesome. If we could just put the two-tone, that would be fine with me. The stone's just going to be really hard because, like you said, when somebody backs into it, it's going to look, and somebody's going to eventually.
Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to go along with that if that's what the commission wants to do. I'm still, the only thing I'm a little troubled with is either we got to change the wording on our ordinance, or else why even have that when it doesn't even talk about the two-tone being steel. I mean, it talks about all these other facades that we're supposed to have. Well, either we got to add that in, that this would be optional, because we're going to sit here one day and another group's going to come in and going to say, well, gosh, you guys let these guys do it. Why do we have, that same problem?
Well, and you're exactly right, too. If you're, we do have to be careful but we did do it with Schmidt Boat Docks, and we had no complaints from property owners that we did put the facade on. So I think we've set a little bit of a precedent there. It's not an ordinance format, though, is it? It's, what did you call it, the East Gateway?
It is an ordinance.
It is an ordinance.
Yep. So we would have to change that, and I guess my intention would be via this discussion to kind of alter that and bring that back for discussion to show an amended, allowing, if we are going with two-tone, to kind of allow that. And
Well, I think we have to do that if we're going to do it, because otherwise every time we allow it, we're breaking our own ordinance.
Well, and we're going to change the ordinance, though, and something else is going to come along, and it's not going to fit either. So if we can become a little more vague in how that's written, approval by the planning commission or however you do that, that would be helpful. Right. I mean, that's why we're on here, because we're supposed to have good taste, right?
Well, and as you said, I mean, in this particular case, I think we've given a pretty good idea what we want to do, but we want to make sure that the wording behind it sort of reflects that.
Okay. And so that would be we're talking about the site plan right now? Is that correct?
Yep. So this would be pertaining to the site plan. The conditional use would just be allowing mini storage units, warehouses to be constructed or be utilized as a land use on this property.
With those conditions that you have listed?
Yep, with the conditions that are in the staff report for the conditional use.
Okay, so can we just go back and let's do the conditional use. That's first on there anyways. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for this property?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Wayne, second by Lesage, that we approve the conditional use permit for the mini storage on Commercial Drive. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. All right, and then next up is the site plan review. And it sounds like, as far as the site plan review is, are we just looking at the building and the brick versus the two-tone, or what else is part of the site plan that we have to be?
So really, as part of the site plan, you'd be looking at things like the landscaping, the East Gateway District standards, parking, which again, it's a storage unit. So,
so those are, and you're not talking about changing any of those conditions except the one that we're talking about with the two-tone versus the brick facade.
Yeah, so conditions would really just pertain to a couple of conditions that were set by the DPW director, which would be paving of all required areas within 1 year, which I guess that's zoning. But the asphalt driveway shall be a minimum of 4 inches thick. So that was a DPW requirement. Landscaping, zoning requirement. All building permits must be obtained before construction. A couple recommendations for landscaping, again, to prevent oak wilt and reduce invasive potential. So really there is no condition put in place for that yet. So I guess what you'd want to do is, if you're looking to approve it with these conditions, you'd want to add one more that states, applicant would be allowed to utilize two-tone commercial grade steel or commercial grade material on the bottom 3 feet in replacement of brick, or the required list of materials. And then I guess clarify if you are just talking in the front, or if you're talking about on the sides too, that are readily visible to the public right of way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So all of the conditions are, I think, okay with everyone. The only one would be that we would be going against a little bit against the East Gateway plan, and so we would have to change that condition so that it, the East Gateway plan, except instead of the brick facade, we would go with the two-tone steel on the front of the building, or do you want it? We didn't really talk about that. Do you just want it on the front of the building? You want it all the way around the building? You want it just on the front and the sides? You want it only on the sides that the public can see?
Street-facing side would be what I would say, yeah.
Just the street-facing side, the main street facing.
Right.
Like you said, the other side is really the airport.
And then adjoining parcels. So, if theoretically, if both parcels on either side are built out, they would have to do that greenway standards anyway, which would essentially hide the sides of the building.
So we're just talking about not necessarily the front side, but the street side of the building. And are we only talking about the buildings that are on the street and not the ones behind them? So the ones behind them, do they have to have the two-tone?
But what was the final analysis on the Schmidt dock building? Was it all the way around in the back?
I think it's only on the front, isn't it?
I think it is. Man, don't quote me on that. I think it is, but I'm not positive.
Go into Google there.
You guys want to take a field trip?
Yeah.
We can right here, maybe.
No, Google Maps didn't have it when we looked it up.
It didn't have it yet?
Yeah, because we took that
Okay.
little virtual tour
What
out
the
there.
heck?
Well, Jared, as long as we brought that up, maybe this would be a question you could answer. If the parties involved decide that they're going to put additional buildings on that property, do they have to come back and see us first?
Yep, they will have to come back, and any changes to that site plan, they'll no longer need the conditional use since that's already approved now. But any changes to that site plan will be brought back to you guys because it'll be the addition of buildings, stuff like that. So it will be brought back to you for review and approval.
So let me ask this then. Do you know, and they're here too, so they could probably answer. So I would call this like their phase one, if that's what they're calling it too. I mean, how quickly do you think you're going to go from phase one to phase two?
Our baker, once they're 90% full, will fund the next 6 buildings.
Okay, and
We're hoping by midsummer.
next year. So you got plenty of time to come back and, okay.
Well,
And I don't know that makes sense for them to continually come back every time they add a building, but maybe at least one more time.
yeah, especially if they're going to add 6 more or something.
Yeah.
But at that point, maybe then it could be determined if those other buildings need any facade work done.
Right.
Yeah, I think at that time, if they come back for the remaining 6, and they have a true phasing plan that shows these next 4 will be built out in 2023, these next 4 will be built out. I think you could, instead of me bringing it back to you, you could just give me to do the authority to do that internal, as long as it meets all of the requirements we've been talking about.
All right. So again, we have conditions. The one condition that we've been talking about really, obviously there's landscaping and it has to be asphalted, and there were a few other ones there too that were large items. And the one conditional use then, just so we're under the same idea, that it would be two-tone, meaning the bottom 3 feet would be of a separate color only on the street side of the building. And I think that explains the condition or the site plan pretty adequately. Eric?
As far as lighting, is that minimal lighting and it meets all requirements? Because there are some apartment buildings close by, right?
Yeah, so I didn't include the rendering in here, but it is all downward-facing lighting. Let me see if I can give you a page number here. So if you go to page 98, so Devil Engineering did all the engineering drawings. So each one of those little circles on there is a light, and it is going to be downward facing. So it is I guess best describe it as it's a square light that only has the light coming out of the bottom. And then of course it'll be underneath eaves. And so it that paired with the greenway that's also in front of it, there should be no light exposure out. Even onto the road. So to make it all the way to those parcels, I don't see as likely.
Okay.
Especially once everything meets maturity. Should be even more blockage.
I just have one quick question, Jared, that I saw in here, like landscaping. You mentioned landscaping plan. Obviously, we're in the airport area. There's height restrictions. All of those shrubs and trees, they only grow to so high, I'm guessing.
And landscaping is on 111.
111. And they're not in danger of encroaching on any height restrictions by the airport or anything as they mature.
So I guess there are some. I see size and maturity. They do have ranges. And I think our height requirement is 35 feet, or is it 45?
I think it depends on the elevation there and then where it goes from there. So it could differ on that property, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So I guess judging by the ranges, there are some that are, I guess one in particular that is 50 to 70, so that could have some issues. If that is another condition, they could come back and take a look at some smaller growing trees. Otherwise, I don't know if there's cutting that would be like power line companies. They require the cutting after so many feet. They kind of cut the top off, which doesn't look great. Otherwise, the recommendation to change those to possibly smaller trees that won't grow past 30, 40 feet at max.
That's
Yeah. It would seem to me, Jared, that if you were working with Dable Engineering and Dable Architect or landscaping, they'll have plenty of options. If you just remind them that the airport says X, they'll find what's needed, I'm sure.
Yeah. No.
So that in the recommendation, it just whatever they and you find appropriate, not to exceed 35 feet or whatever it is.
Okay. That's a good point, Aaron. Appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see it sooner.
Okay, anybody else? Anything else? Anybody like to make a motion? I think Justin's got it. He's the motion guy here.
I don't have the tree part written up yet.
On trees.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Olson, second by Keelan, that we approve of the site plan review with those conditions that we discussed. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Sure, Jarrett will be in contact with you.
That was motion by Olson, second by Keelan.
It was.
Okay.
All right, next up, we have ordinance number 18, 2021. This is chapter 17.104, parent 3, permitted use and conditional use amendment. And this will be recommended to council. Jarrett, you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So as the mayor just mentioned, this is an ordinance format. It would be recommended to the council for that final approval. So two things as we were kind of working through, I guess they could just be described as oversights in the zoning update. So the first one is professional studios. So this would be things like the artists, the photographers. That was not currently allowed in B7, but it was allowed in every other zoning district, which again, it's a fairly minimalistic use. And with the B7 kind of being right next to that river, the riverfront and River Park, and right next to the B2 districts, it didn't really make much sense that it wasn't permitted. With this being a pretty low level use, to not be permitted, just I guess to staff it didn't make sense. And then the other one is the manufacturing operations in I2. So that was conditional, which the I2 district is really meant for heavy industrial manufacturing. So again, it was just by having it a conditional to staff, it didn't make much sense. It was just more of an extra hurdle they would have to go through to do something that they should be permitted to do. So really kind of two minor. I guess if there are any questions, I will be glad to take questions.
Would there be a reason not to have manufacturing operations in I1?
That's my question, too.
Give me one moment.
I'll give you two, Jared.
So I'm going to read the intent of the I1 district. This district is intended to be permitted both large and small-scale industrial and office development at an intensity which is consistent with the overall desired suburban community character of the community. And then just some general landscaping. Geared towards indoor industrial activities, which are not typically associated with high levels of noise, soot, odors, and other potential nuisances for adjoining properties. And then it's just meant to ensure minimal disruption to residential development. So I guess in my immediate thinking, not to say this is the best way to do it, but it's kind of bringing I-2 and then a buffer zone, I-1, and then kind of that less. So it's trying to reduce that. So I guess I don't see a reason why it couldn't be a conditional use. I would be hesitant to put it as a permitted use right away, just so, you know, it is coming to you guys for that approval and ensuring that it's not negatively affecting the other properties.
What's the color on that one?
It's going to be light purple. So right next to that airport, yep. So, I mean, the way we have it laid out, if it was permitted, I can't say for sure. I don't see any immediate.
We had mentioned something in your description about a community sensitive or community, I guess, feel.
Suburban community character.
Well, our top two employers are manufacturing. Feels like we're a manufacturing town.
Yeah,
I understand the hesitant or your hesitation on it, but
I'm just going to make one comment. I would agree with Jared. I just think that, and I don't know all the reasons right now, but I know that just rather than kind of suggesting it be permitted, there's probably good reason it hasn't been permitted in the past, and certainly I would say we could look into what those reasons are.
Yeah, if that's something you would like more input on, we can definitely bring that back.
We have quite a mix of businesses out there already that are not manufacturing, you know. Daycares, I remember, and Fox Valley. So, you know, to permit, say, in the I-1 district, manufacturing next to the daycare, I don't think would be appropriate.
Good point.
well, the daycare that's I-2.
It is,
He's got it
okay.
up there, the industrial park.
Yeah, so daycare, that whole dark purple up there is I-2, and then I will put out a reminder, Aaron, if you move your cursor just north a little bit, right there. So actually a rezone is going to be coming through as we are starting the process of that neighborhood development of River North. So eventually that is all going to be mixed community. So it could be townhouses, could be, R2, could be R1, could be R3, as well as that mixture of those neighborhood commercial businesses, as you mentioned, like the gymnastics, the school, the daycare, stuff like that. So the area up there is definitely going to be changing a little bit. And of course, with that new neighborhood, there will be appropriate buffering with landscaping, stuff like that, to really reduce that feel. But yeah, that would be I-2. So that's what we would be permitting the manufacturing operations in up there, if that helps.
So is this, excuse me, getting back to the amendment to this ordinance, would this be what we would send if we agree to your suggested changes? We would forward this to the council for a couple of readings?
Yes.
Is that how it would have to go again?
I think there's another public hearing for the council, and then it would be read by the council twice.
Look at the packet. Yes, that is through our current process. That is correct. Yes.
Well, I only bring that up because then the council, if they have any concerns, as Justin suggested, maybe could deal with it at that level. Personally, I think, and this is just my opinion, as a city planning person, I think I would be willing to send it to council and then let the council get a kick at the cat here.
And are you saying as is, or would you like to add
As your suggested changes.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
I will make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Fair, second by Keelan, that we recommend to court council ordinance number 18-21. Any discussion, more discussion?
What was the motion? As is or with
As is.
with changes?
As is.
With no change.
Okay.
Well, no changes to his changes.
Yeah, correct.
So B7, professional studios would be permitted in B7, and manufacturing operations would be permitted in I2, and that is it.
Correct.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Discussion items. Discussion on parking requirements. Are we talking about the stalls on the side of City Hall where some people continue to
you
get
skip
parking
one?
tickets?
Yeah, so actually I'd like to add parallel parking in the middle of Main Street.
Specifically.
Skipping item.
Did I?
I got fee schedule change.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
fee
sorry,
schedule's
yes.
next,
All
sorry.
right, thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Fee schedule change for change of use.
So this one, so as I've been working through a lot of these processes, we have started to require a change of use site plan application. So really this is meant to ensure that whatever use is going into a new structure or uses are changing, that it is compliant with the zoning code. You know, for an example, you don't want, as much as we love them, we wouldn't want the foundry moving in downtown and starting a machining operation, you know, stuff like that as an extreme example. So through that process, we started requiring this permit application, which originally was the whole site plan application, which was 8 pages. And individuals just residents had a very hard time filling it out just for a change of use. So as such, we, as staff, went through and we narrowed that down. I think it is now a 2-page application, really just what's needed, keeping it simple, making sure that, those couple site plan requirements are still being met and that the zoning, use is in compliance. So with that, we're expecting fairly minimal review, and we don't feel as though it would be fair to continue charging, the price of a full site plan. So really just kind of, in my mind, trying to help out the residents and, business owners, especially the new ones trying to look to come into the city, as we would very much like to welcome them, and encourage them to make sure that they are in compliance with zoning. Looking to switch the fee to only $25, which, again, we're approximating maybe 30 minutes of review. Some could take 5 if they're really simple. Some could take 45. I guess at the very top, some could take an hour. And looking at, what materials and staff time it would be to cover that half-hour average, we felt as though 25 would be sufficient. So just adding that into the fee schedule, allowing for and this would just be change of use. If it would go up to a normal site plan at all, they would be charged the full amount, and of course we would go through that full process. But just the simple change in uses, looking at reducing.
What's the fee currently?
So the fee currently for a non-residential site plan is $150, and the residential is $50. And then, really in a residential, and this would be coming forward in a zoning code change, clarifying that a residence, currently as the code states, it is any change in use. So technically, if a new user is coming in and it's residential, it doesn't make much sense to require them to do a change in use. So just clarifying that in the code, whether it needs to be or not, just so there's no questions that residence to residence, doesn't need to occur. Now, if it is a situation that has recently come forward where it was a commercial building, on a residential parcel and they're looking to make it into a residence, that would come forward to notify that this land use is changing, or if it sat vacant for, 12 months and, whatever the case may be, that would be brought forward. But just the simple ownership of going from a residence to residence would not change or would not require this. A lot of blabbering. I'm sorry.
So the fees for a change of use is going to be reduced from 150 to 25.
Essentially.
I move we approve.
I second.
Motion by Barron, second by Lesage, that we approve reducing the fee structure down to $25 per review for residential. Right?
Correct.
No,
Or
not-
just for any change of use.
Any change of use,
Yep. Any required change of use,
or any change of use.
site plan application would be 25.
All right. Any discussion?
Mayor, are we recommending this to council? Or are we doing this right now?
I think you have to recommend it to council.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Here we are. Jarrett, you have any idea how much that will change what we take in income in a year's time, average?
I can probably speak to that a little better. If you compare it to, you can really only compare that to the last probably 6 months, because we actually haven't been doing change of uses until Jeff got here. So what this did is we need to do change of uses, but because we didn't have a pay structure that was different, we were charging this unneeded amount of $150 that was tied to a larger type of site plan review. So really, if you're comparing it to past data and budgets, Mayor, I would say it really is no impact.
Okay. And then this new form that for change of use, have we seen that?
Have not. So really, we just took the current site plan application and we just took out what was not needed.
Can you send that to all of us?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we can see it? I mean, I'm guessing we need to approve that too at some time.
I can tell you a little. The site plan review, the full site plan review application is about 7 pages, pretty lengthy. Jared and his staff pared it down to like 2.5.
I get it, but I still think it has to be approved by council.
It
And
would
if they
seem,
approve the 7-page, they're gonna have to approve the, reducing it down to the 2.5 page.
it would seem to me, Mayor, that maybe when it comes up on the agenda for the full council, not only the $25, but also a copy of that could be seen by all the council people at that time, if that's possible by next Tuesday, is it? Or whenever your next meeting is?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks? That would seem to me to clarify everything right then and there.
It would, although the city planning commission members are tasked with this, so I thought they might want to look at it.
So I guess brings up a question. So as part of this, whether you're doing a fence, a pool, an accessory structure, a new home, it was all that same 8-page document. So we are looking, and we already have started to pare down. So if it's just a fence you're looking for, you don't have to fill out this 8-page document. So we do have pared down for fences and stuff like that. So would you like me to bring all of them to you guys?
Sure.
And would that be, I guess, in the form of approval by you guys or recommendation to council as well?
Well, I think they have to be recommended to council.
Okay.
Are you amending? Are you asking to amend the motion, or are you just directing staff to do stuff?
Well, this is an addition to the fee. So these are two different things, I guess. But he talked about the form and how they reduced the form, and that's why they feel they don't need to charge as much. But I don't know what the form looks like.
Have you used a form yet, a reduced one?
So we have started using it. So I guess I was under the impression that it was, and I have no preference. I guess I'll say that right away. I'm happy to bring it. So I was under the impression it was just more administrative. But if it does need council approval, I guess, would you recommend I go back to the old forms until then?
No,
Or just-
I'm not.
No, you're fine. I'm just
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that when you deal with the public and you put together something in-house, that's what we're here, you're here for us to test it on.
sure.
So we're gonna look at it, we're gonna say, oh, Jared, that's stupid, or no, this looks great.
Thanks,
You know
Mayor.
what I mean?
Just getting you ready.
But you're just doing it in-house now, and you're not giving
Yeah,
public
no.
the opportunity to take a look at it.
Yeah, no, I will bring all of them forward that we have,
Yeah.
and then they can be commented on, and if they need to be changed or altered in any way, as you guys see fit, we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Does the form have to be approved with the price change?
It doesn't have to be. So I think Mayor's comments make a lot of sense. It doesn't technically have to be approved by Plan Commission or Council. The form does not. So,
Okay.
so this could move forward.
Yep.
Well, and the amount of requests you're getting are probably getting reduced as we're getting into the winter months, I'm guessing.
Correct.
So we got a little time there. But I think the motion can stand. I agree. Motion can stand. I just was trying to elaborate more on what was going on. Okay, any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, now we can go to, we should have skipped that. No, let's go to parking requirements.
Yes, and my apologies. I meant to have a visual in here for you. I guess it's probably going to be easier with a visual. So, Aaron, would you mind if I sent this to you and just pulled it up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Figure that out.
No, I got it figured out.
We have that little
What's that?
router thing he could use.
Yeah, you could. We'll do that. But I'm going to do this for a sec.
I thought you might be on the way to Green Bay, Aaron. They're looking for another quarterback.
Yeah, trust me. I just ask anyone I played with about that.
Yeah.
So Brian, about 10 minutes, I gotta be leaving.
Okay,
Just
all right.
when I
Just-
walk out.
Just wave. We're actually, there's nothing else to vote on, and we have a quorum anyways, but so all the rest is just informational stuff. So, thanks for the
Yeah.
advance notice.
All right, I got it pulled up here.
Too slow. Just.
Those two.
My apologies again for not having this in there. So, kind of some background. And I guess I will have Aaron scroll to page 4 of the document. So this is kind of a snapshot of what we currently have in our code. This is from the old code. So for example, a duplex has to require 2 spaces per dwelling unit. Motels, hotels, 1.5 stalls for each sleeping unit. Hospitals, 1 space for every 3 beds plus 1 space for every medical staff member. So I guess primary issue we're running into, and I guess the best example would be prior to this, or prior in this meeting was foundations for living. So the way this was in place is that, if they had those three uses, we need to look at each use, and we need to combine all of those uses' parking needs in accordance to this chart. This chart does not cover all of our land uses. And there are communities that do this, that do the entire, they take their whole land use list and they make parking requirements for each land use. I guess in an internship that I did out of college, I'd taken a look at parking requirements as they had seen that these just weren't working in their community either. So I kind of searched around, and I think one of the big cities that has done this is actually Minneapolis. There are other communities that, they leave it up to the businesses. I guess in terms of Minneapolis, they actually have a maximum amount, which I think is a little too extreme. So for an example, like their retail uses, they would have that you can have a maximum for, one space for every 600 square feet, to really kind of cut down on parking. Because again, nobody wants their city to be a concrete jungle of unnecessary parking. So really what I was kind of looking at and going off the premise of, nobody knows their development better than the developer. So in a sense, they should be submitting to us with justification of how many stalls, parking they truly need. And then us taking a look at that justification, seeing if it is adequate, if it is understandable, adequate in our minds, going forward with it. And then, on that same premise, we would have contingencies within this section that, if it turns out that their proposed parking and justification is inadequate, it's not providing what they need to provide, it is negatively affecting our traffic, that we can go back to them and say, hey, this parking study you provided, the number of stalls you said you needed is inadequate. We have a police report showing that, what you have is just, it's way out of means. There are people trying to park on the road and, stuff like this, and it's happening all the time kind of thing. So I guess short of it, looking at amending the code to leave it up to the developer, and this would just be on page 3, kind of the primary section of this, and kind of read through it. So single family would, of course, just have the standard, what we had prior, the 2 spaces per dwelling unit, to ensure that they are parking off the street, and they do have adequate parking. Pretty minimal, pretty simplistic. But then all other developments, we'd be looking at, the traffic study, the parking study that would be conducted by the builder, developer, consultant, that meets the ADA requirements, and would provide adequate parking. So kind of with that would be the primary change. And then along with that, it would just be minor changes to clarify, the ADA parking. And then, so I guess that's kind of the first part. The second part came up as loading space. So, and this is on page 1. As we were kind of looking at parking, a question on loading space came up, and it was just talking about how, adequate loading space is needed. And the question came up of, well, adequate for what? Adequate for a, resident to park their car in, a, loading space for a truck to back into. So I guess amending this section would change it a little bit to clarify that. Also kind of leaving it up to the developer and, what the actual use would be utilized in that beef, or what that would be utilized for. So just kind of amending that, making that more clear. And then also it was brought up between the Department of Public Works and myself that, there are a lot of trucks parking on Main Street, and really we don't have any set exemption, per our code. So an exemption would be on page 2 that would show that in the B2 Central Business District or B7 District, they're exempt from providing those parking stalls.
Is there a time limit on that? I didn't read. I mean, for example, if
and I'm sorry, I was on page 1 when reading about that. The exemption: any development locating within the B2 Central Business District or B7 shall be exempt from providing loading spaces. At no time shall the loading or unloading process for development obstruct the passage of traffic in an alleyway or public right-of-way. So it should never fully obstruct. So if the truck decides it wants to park perfectly perpendicular with the road, that would, of course, not be allowed. But there is no set time limit either. Something that, I guess, in my watching of those trucks unload, they are here to get in, unload, and get out. They have other places to be. It's not they enjoy sitting around and taking up 6 parking stalls kind of thing. So I guess kind of a lot of changes. I guess really the overarching would just be clarity, and then allowing the developer to submit that parking study instead of us determining what their development needs.
Yeah, I think this is great, actually, Jared. I mean, I think every commercial use that you can think of probably has different space needs, parking space needs, and it's hard to be able to justify it for one or the other. So I like that. Leave it up to the developer. I think it's pretty cool. As long as it's not a stress on the city where they end up on the city streets instead of in a parking lot.
No, and it would have my review as well, and a lot of these, these would be the new developments coming in. So they would have, a lot of them would have your review as well, especially if they're major. So not only my eyes would be on a majority of them, but your eyes would be on a majority of them too.
Go ahead.
So Jared, I think this is a great idea too, and a good direction. One question came up that we didn't talk about before. It said something about a parking or a traffic study would be required. Is that in every instance, or just the instances after review that we feel like it's a borderline scenario?
Clarity would probably have to be gained on that. So I guess my thought would be, or I can include clarity in this language. The thought would be for those minor developments, providing that justification. If for some reason in those minor developments, it doesn't seem adequate by myself, I can bring it to you guys. If that is the case and they, would like that second opinion on it, bring it forward. And if, you or, just I or you guys too do not feel it's adequate, we can require that full parking study to adequately show. In most cases, like Foundations for Living, they provided that, their office space is going to have 5 people. The homeless shelter, many of them do not have vehicles. They're providing a bike rack for those that have bicycles. But at max, they're going to have 2 or 3 with vehicles, and then their retail is going to have, 5 or so. So by having that, justification, it makes sense to myself. If it makes sense to you guys, really no true parking study done by an engineering firm would be needed. Okay. It would just be in those off chances that something doesn't make sense. And then maybe if a Walmart were to come in, at that point, we would maybe have them, most likely have them do a parking study, a full parking study within their site plan requirements and bring that forward, since it would be such a massive requirement that, they say 200 stalls would be adequate, and I have trouble producing in my mind what 200 stalls looks like.
In my opinion, that makes sense to be able to determine when it is and when it isn't. I guess what I was thinking in my mind could get to a point where, okay, now if it says in there that a traffic study is required, that might cost more than the 4 extra stalls. And it's more of a burden. So if there's that flexibility, I think that makes sense in my eyes.
So I will note to add clarity for that. If it is wanting to be brought back this way.
Yeah, I like this discussion. I went through this personally recently with Jared shortly after he started in the city, the organization that I volunteer at. Change of use would require X number of parking spaces per the number of employees at the group. We don't have employees, we have only volunteers. And the number of volunteers ranged from 2 to 17 at any time of the year. So requiring a certain amount of parking spaces just seemed rather ludicrous. And we were able to resolve that. But I think we do need this review and revision to the parking.
Sounds good. So it's your fault that we're sitting here.
I don't know about that.
Just wondering. Yeah, so Jared, what happens next then? Is this an ordinance change?
Yeah, so I would just bring this forward in ordinance form. And then, with those slight changes, it can be re-reviewed, looked at, public hearing, and then it would be recommended to council for another public hearing, 2 readings.
Okay.
Just to make sure we get the full. But I guess with this, I was going to try to bring kind of more of a first look. There are some more zoning changes that I wanted to bring forward, but nothing formal, just more of a first look, see these, minor hiccups that we can try to avoid the first time, fix them, and then bring them back for a formal process.
Sounds great. You want to go right into the reports then, too?
Yeah. So internal site plan report, 215 Jefferson Street, Wonderlust Sense. They are up and running. You might possibly have been in there already. 301 East Lake Street. This is a fence permit, but it was approved by the Historic Preservation Committee. So I just felt I could throw that in there. 700 Industrial Drive, change in use, mobility for vets. 808 Sunridge Court. This was kind of a unique one. So this is a PUD development. I guess it would be south of the everyday hometown development business, kind of a condominium development. And they were looking for a condominium identification sign. So similar as SC Swiderski that just put up apartments, they have that apartment identification sign. Sunridge Court wanted that. I guess this minor ground sign that met all the requirements for the R3 district. It was, I guess in my eyes, a minor PUD amendment, which would have just provided the authority for me to approve it. Again, seeing as how all the other developments just like this have signs. So just bringing that one to your attention, that one occurred. In process, 122 South Main Street. So actually, I did just send that out today. So that one was approved. This was the conditional use that was approved at council last night for the cocktail lounge. And the other 2 uses were retail, hair salon. So I do know they have their building permits. They're kind of in the process of doing that change. So site plan portion was approved for the change of use. 201 South Main Street, change of use, the Summit Accounting Offices, Professional Services, Professional Offices. That one is still in progress. A couple items are needed yet. 208 East Union Street, change of use. So this was actually Summit Accounting, but was transitioned to a property management company. So they will be going through that change of use. And then 515 East Fulton Street. This is the one that was mentioned in the change of use discussion that is going from commercial to residential. So that one is in progress. They are filling out the application now, and they're also working with our building inspectors to ensure that it is compliant with all residential building standards. But I guess really those are the main ones that had popped up. I will take any questions on that.
That 515 East Fulton Street, is that the old county offices? Is that right?
Yes.
For the streets department or county?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just nosy.
Somebody put an electric vehicle charger in their home too. Nice. Yeah, 314 Southbourne.
We're just getting green all over. Okay. Anything else you have for us?
Not that one. The October 2021 permit report, and then the code enforcement status reports kind of follow that. Really aren't too many major ones, but I will take any questions if you have any on those.
I saw Granite Street. I was wondering if it was me at first.
We'll get to you. Don't worry.
That was under nuisance?
Yeah, that's nuisance, yeah.
That would be police and fire.
Yeah, exactly. If it's all right, I just have a couple things. I talked to Jane, our commercial building inspector, this afternoon. A couple things that plan commissioners might be interested. Just 2 items. Ruby's Pantry looking to do a final occupancy walkthrough, December 15th, I believe. And then Starbucks, they're looking to open potentially next week. So I know that's been going on for a while. 2 visible projects. I guess the only other thing. Mayor, do you want to talk about River North and the interviews at all?
We can.
Just an update, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we had one interview last Thursday for the River North subdivision plan or neighborhood plan, and then we have 2 tomorrow, and then the development review team who's in those interviews will kind of debrief afterwards and hopefully have an update for you after that. So just an update on where we are there. And then I guess the only other thing I have is sign workshop. We talk about signs a lot. We talk about ordinance changes relating to signs a lot, and we spend a lot of staff time on signs, to be perfectly honest. So we are going to have a sign workshop. Steve Sorensen, who's the city attorney, is going to come in and do a little sign workshop. He does them for a lot of municipalities in a lot of places. And then we're going to talk about some things that we could do possibly to gain some efficiencies in our processes. So that'll be December 1st. Would love for all plan commissioners to make that one if you can.
Well, that is our regular city planning commission meeting too. So it would be during that time frame.
Yep. And then I was going to try to make a note during one of the council meetings too that was going to occur, to make sure any council members can attend if they would like to.
Okay, make sure you post that there could be a quorum then too. Have Sandy do that. So we're not in any kind of violation. But they certainly, and we should make that available virtually too if they want to just sit at home and watch it too. That would be fine. That's great. Anything else for the good?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Farrar, second by Keelan, that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. We're adjourned at 6:48 p.m. Have a great night. Drive safe. Drive down Main Street.